Okay, here's a thought to start us off. What if the next global health crisis isn't just, another round of what we've seen? What if it's something much worse and it's maybe right around the corner?
It's definitely a sobering thought, isn't it? Really makes you pause.
It does. And that's exactly the territory we're exploring today. Now, before we properly dive in, we wanted to mention something new we're trying.
Yeah, this is a bit different. We're calling it an extended summary. Think of it as a really in-depth overview of a book.
Right. So, different from our usual critiques, which are more focused analysis. This is about tracing the big ideas, the arguments, the whole journey of the book, really.
We'd love to know what you think if this deeper, broader look is helpful. Your feedback helps us figure out what kind of content to make going forward.
Definitely. And also, just a quick note, you're listening to a unique two-host AI conversation. We're powered by Google's NotebookLM, which lets us create these hopefully deeper and more dynamic book summaries for you.
Okay, so let's get to it.
Let's. Today we're tackling the big one, how we must prepare for future deadly pandemics. The authors are Michael Osterholm and Mark Olshaker.
And this isn't just like a standard health book. It really reads like an urgent warning, almost a survival guide, you could say.
Published in 2025, so very much in the shadow of, well, everything we've all just been through.
Yeah.
It's a book that really demands attention.
Absolutely. Our mission today really is to unpack the core argument here, which is basically the inevitability of another pandemic, potentially way deadlier than COVID-19.
And crucially, what steps the authors say we must take to prepare. What does it tell us about the future? And maybe more importantly, what can we learn from the past?
Yeah, learn from the past so we don't just repeat it. They really paint a stark picture. It's a call to shake off any complacency.
Okay, so let's face this warning head on. The central idea, the premise of the big one, it's this urgent factual warning.
Right. They're saying a future pandemic, possibly much, much more lethal than COVID, isn't just some vague possibility. They see it as inevitable.
And they call it the big one. Not exactly subtle.
Not subtle at all. And they frame it not as some, far-off problem for our grandkids, but something critical, something we need to deal with now.
It's a huge claim. What gives them that certainty? Is it just extrapolating from COVID, or is there more to it?
That's a really important question. It's definitely not just about COVID. Their certainty comes from, well, decades of studying disease patterns and also looking at the, frankly, consistent failure of our global systems to actually learn the lessons from past outbreaks.
So tell us about the authors. Michael Osterholm, he's the main investigator, right?
So principal investigator and co-author, he brings just this incredible depth of experience, decades in epidemiology, dealing with outbreaks going way back. Think the swine flu scare in '76 and everything since.
Wow. So he's seen a lot.
A lot. And he gets the human side of it, too, the emotional stakes, the political pressures, the things we should have learned from every crisis, not just the most recent one. He understands why policies fail, why panic sets in.
Okay, so deep expertise there. And Mark Olshaker, what's his role?
Olshaker's the co-author, and his specialty is narrative nonfiction, investigative writing. He's the one who helps take all that complex science, the institutional knowledge Osterholm has.
And makes it readable.
Exactly, makes it accessible, engaging. So it's not just a dense academic report. It's written so that anyone, policymakers, sure, but also just regular people can understand it and feel the urgency.
That combination sounds powerful. Deep science plus strong storytelling.
It really is. And it allows them to do something pretty unique with the book structure, too.
Which is?
Well, it's not just one thing. It blends medical reporting, public health analysis, and even disaster preparedness nonfiction.
Right.
And what they do is they weave together really rigorous investigation of past pandemics, how we responded, what went wrong with this fictional scenario, a hypothetical future pandemic.
Okay, so they create a what if.
A scientifically plausible what if. And the whole point of blending these two is to shine a bright light on the real-world problems, the weaknesses in our systems that we desperately need to fix. It makes the potential consequences feel very, very real.
Right, that's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit terrifying, this fictional scenario. They invent a new virus.
They do. They call it SARS-CoV-3.
Yeah.
And the truly chilling part isn't just that it's new, it's the type of virus they imagine.
How so?
They picture something that combines the extreme infectiousness of COVID-19, remember how fast that spread?
Oh, yeah. Hard to forget.
With the much, much higher fatality rates seen in earlier diseases like the original SARS or MERS.
Okay, wow. That is a scary combination.
Yeah.
Highly contagious and highly lethal.
It's terrifyingly plausible, that's the thing. It really forces you to think about a threat that could genuinely push everything past its breaking point.
So where does this hypothetical virus come from in their story?
The narrative traces it, starting in the Horn of Africa, specifically Somalia. Then it jumps quickly to nearby refugee populations.
Okay, vulnerable populations. Makes sense.
And from there, it just explodes globally, like wildfire, accelerated by, well, thus, our interconnected world.
Travel, trade.
All of it. They really illustrate how a few infected people on planes can seed outbreaks across continents before anyone even fully grasps what's happening. It's the speed that's partly so frightening.
And the scenario isn't just the virus spreading, right? It's the fallout.
Exactly. The book goes into meticulous detail about how this big one just overwhelms everything. Health systems, governments, even, civil society.
What kind of impacts do they describe?
All sorts. You see health services collapsing in some areas, widespread misinformation spreading even faster than the disease itself, amplified by media, social media.
Yeah.
It shows just how fragile our whole global setup really is when it's put under that kind of extreme stress. It's not just about running out of hospital beds, it's the cascade effect. One system fails, it puts pressure on another.
Sounds like a domino effect.
Pretty much. And one interesting choice they made, there aren't really recurring fictional characters, like in a novel. No deep backstories.
Oh. So how do they show the human impact?
They take more of a panoramic view. They show factual human behaviors, how different groups react. Doctors, public health officials, the general public, how they adapt or fail to adapt.
So it keeps the focus on the big picture.
Yeah.
The systemic issues.
Right. It provides a clearer lens for analysis, less distraction from individual dramas. You're meant to see the collective response, the patterns of behavior.
That makes sense. And you mentioned earlier they weave this fictional part with real history.
Yes, and it's a really effective technique. The book alternates. You're reading about the unfolding SARS-CoV-3 crisis, this hypothetical.
Right.
And then it cuts to a really honest, rigorous look at real-world pandemics, the history.
So it creates this kind of feedback loop.
Exactly. The continuous comparison. Here's a what if, and here's what actually happened. It forces you to think, okay, how did we handle the 1918 flu? Or SARS? Or hiv AIDS? Or COVID? And how would those same mistakes play out in this much worse scenario?
And that look back at history must be pretty sobering, too.
Oh, definitely. That's where some of the most critical stuff is. They review the major ones, 1918 flu, HIV AIDS, SARS, COVID. And they look at both the successes, where things went right.
If they did.
Right, if they did. But crucially, the failures, the systemic failures in the U.S. response, the global response, they really don't hold back.
What kind of failures do they focus on?
A recurring pattern emerges. Underinvestment in public health, fragmented leadership, just a short collective memory. For instance, they point out how lessons from SARS back in 2003 about rapid tracing, border controls seemed largely forgotten or ignored by the time COVID hit.
We seem doomed to repeat mistakes.
That's certainly the fear they raise. And these failures aren't just abstract policy points. They get specific. Think about strained supply chains.
Yeah, we all lived through that. Masks, tests, ventilators.
Exactly. The book shows how incredibly tangled and brittle those global supply chains had become. Sometimes a single missing component, like a specific type of swab,
Could halt everything.
could halt a whole nation's testing effort. It wasn't just raw materials. It was this complex, fragile ecosystem. They also hit hard on communication failures.
Mixed messages.
Absolutely. Mixed messages from officials, from political leaders, eroding public trust at the worst possible time, and just the unevenness of government action, different states, different countries doing completely different things. All of this directly impacted lives,
Yeah.
outcomes.
And they dive into the controversial stuff, too, right? The public health debates.
They have to. Things like school closures,
Yeah.
the whole debate around masks, efficacy, mandates, and the enormous challenges with vaccines, access, distribution, hesitancy.
Those are huge.
Huge and often incredibly polarized. The book explores how media coverage and public perception often lagged behind the science or got tangled up in politics. It wasn't always just misinformation. Sometimes it was a basic failure to communicate evolving science clearly.
Oh, it became less about health and more about, well, other things.
That's often what happened, yeah. Distracting from the core mission.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what are the main takeaways, the big themes?
Well, number one is definitely the inevitability of new pandemics. They are coming. Number two is the huge risk of complacency, just trying to forget COVID and move on without fixing things.
That feels like a real danger now.
It is. And number three is the need for concrete, actionable steps, both for prevention where possible and definitely for a response. It's a call for sustained scientific readiness, real government accountability, not just promises, and rebuilding trust in public health.
These aren't small fixes they're suggesting.
Not at all. They're arguing for fundamental shifts, urgent ones.
And connecting to the bigger picture, they're really exposing weaknesses in our whole system.
Absolutely. Systemic vulnerabilities. They pinpoint specific bottlenecks, procedural, technological, that consistently slow down or mess up our responses.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, like the agonizing slowness of regulatory approvals for new tests or vaccines, even in an emergency, or the lack of standardized data collection across different regions or countries, which makes tracking an outbreak way harder than it should be.
Right. Things that seem fixable but just aren't fixed.
Exactly. And these things add up. They create this fragile global system that's just not built for the kind of shock they describe in the big one. It's this kind of deep, systemic thinking looking at the root causes. It actually reminds me of the kind of critical thought we encourage over on our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments.
Good point. Yeah, for listeners who want more AI-driven analysis, summaries, critiques, really digging into reflection and rational thought on various topics, Mindful Moments is the place.
Definitely worth checking out if you like this kind of deeper exploration.
So, back to the book. To make these systemic issues feel real, they talk about tangible things too.
Oh, yeah. They discuss the essentials, diagnostic tests, PPE, vaccines, but they go deeper, explaining why shortages happen, what went wrong with distribution, why proper use matters.
It's not just we need masks, it's here's why the mask supply chain failed.
Precisely. And they cover practices too, quarantine rules, cultural views on masking, effective ways to communicate risk. And importantly for anyone reading, they explain the key scientific terms, the epidemiology, in a way that's clear without being simplistic. Like, what is airborne transmission versus droplet, and why does that difference change everything?
Makes complex science accessible.
That's the goal.
So how was the book received when it came out in 2025?
It made a huge splash pretty much immediately, seen as incredibly timely, urgent, gripping even, despite the grim topic.
People recognized the warning.
Yes. Reviewers, the publisher, health experts, they praised it for its really clear-eyed diagnosis of where our pandemic preparedness is failing, and for offering a pragmatic way forward, a roadmap for reform. It hit a nerve.
Did it actually influence things? Policy discussion?
It definitely became a key reference point in policy circles, in public health discussions, because it was written so accessibly, using facts, avoiding jargon.
Right, Olshaker's contribution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That helped it reach a really broad audience. It sparked conversations not just about what needs doing, but the much harder question of how we actually achieve it, given all the political and social hurdles.
So, wrapping up, the big one sounds like more than just a forecast.
Much more. It's not just about what could happen. It's a deep dive into what the authors believe will happen if we don't change course, and what we absolutely must do.
It really forces you to confront some uncomfortable truths about our readiness, our resilience.
Yeah, it leaves you with that big question hanging in the air. Are we actually going to get ready for the big one? Or are we just going to let history repeat itself, only, potentially much, much deadlier this time?
A profoundly unsettling question.
Right.
Okay, if you want to explore this book further, maybe get into more of the critical analysis, click the link on screen for our in-depth book critique.
And please, subscribe. Share this with others you think should hear it. Maybe purchase the book through the link and help support this analysis. And keep thinking rationally about these huge global challenges.
See the many genre-based book podcasts at Mindful Moments. Subscribe and nourish your mind on the go.